Huh?
Okay.
A tape, okay. We'll start on the line Rag Betuv Hadover. This is like 7 lines from the beginning of that section, from Kuvov. So we have here within 2 lines, 2 opposite statements. On one hand, we said that meichin that are shaychus to midos, that become the compelling element, and this is why you should appreciate this. Now this is not meichin. This is not etzem hadover. This is not understanding, so focusing in etzem hadover. This is the midos element. On the other hand, just a line later, pardon me, Zeh ha'asogo be'etzem hadover. The hasoga in the etzem hadover. This is the line that begins with the word hameichin. And then he explains what does it mean be'etzem hadover. Hainu behasichli. Meaning to say in the sichli of the dover, of the thing. We have to focus in and try to define the meaning of the word be'etzem hadover. To start with, we already discussed that etzem is not a worldly presence. Etzem means, the word etzem means something that has an inherent reality, presence, truth. Not by virtue of its effect and its usefulness, whatever it may be. The whole phenomenon that there is such thing as an etzem in the world is not a worldly creation. Etzem is present in the world because the world is really a godly creation. And in such, there is a godly intent and definition what the creation is supposed to stand for. Let us step back a bit and reflect on this. The world is a precarious presence. Precarious means it's a shaky presence, a presence that needs to be held up and supported. It does not have its own means and resource to maintain itself. Whether to maintain itself in existence or to maintain itself in terms of its interest in being. Why be? What's the point? The principle of etzem means that something is totally self-justifying. It has a real reason, a real significance in its being. Das means etzem. Now when we say this is I'm sorry. Okay, I have to call in.
Your name followed by the pound key.
I'm a PALTIEL.
Thank you. Your next participant number 3.
So we are on the line begins with what HaMoichin, just 7 lines from the beginning. The principle of etzem. So we found that here, between 2 lines, one first we said that this is that Hitzonis HaSeichel, this is not B'Hasoga B'Hetzem HaDover. And then we turn around, by the way, and say that Hagam, that although this is also Hasoga B'Hetzem HaDover, Haina B'Hasichli. What is the meaning of Etzem HaDover? In the world, in worldly experience, there is nothing in worldly experience that cannot be traced back to a cause. Why you pursuing? Why you doing this? What's its value? Where did it come from? Like we said way back when, this is actually in the Ramban explains that oil shenivra beim rishain had to be nignas. That oil had to be concealed. Why? Because it doesn't fit with worldliness. What doesn't fit with worldliness? The Ramban goes on to say that actually this oil was concealed, was not completely removed, because subsequently that same impact of oil is given to us through the sun. And now it is acceptable in the world arena, and before that wasn't. Why? Because in the world there has to be always the basis. Where does it come from? A reality on its own. Now, the first day, the Rebbe said there should be light. There said there is nothing in the world that explains what this light is, where it comes from. And therefore it is something which the world cannot accept and cannot substantiate.
And where does the sun come from?
Okay, we can. This question is not fine. The sun was created by the Medrash. Clear, but it's an entity. It's a presence. I have this cup of water. You can ask where did I get the cups from? Yeah, you can ask. You can start tracing it back. But there is something real here. Light without a luminary. Okay, I hear where you're coming from. The difficulty with light without a luminary is that light is not a tangible presence.
That makes it.
That makes it not a non-entity, not a presence, not a worldly presence.
The point is not where it comes from. The point is because it's not tangible.
Correct. If it's not tangible, it has to have a source that makes it. Otherwise, how does it come here?
And if it is tangible?
If it is tangible, it's part of the world. Let's take it on a very simple thing. Okay, there's a table right here. And you went to the Sumi says a table right here. You will not ask the question, who made the table? How come there is a table in the beginning? You ask, how come there is a table in this place? What's the difference? Because when you say the presence of the table, that's a physical thing. There was wood, and it turned out to be a table. However it happened, but here there seems to be this is already an intangible reality. Why is it here? That's what you're asking, where it comes from, and you have to trace it back to a human being. And why is it here? It becomes a whole. This is the sichli. This is what the Rebbe says. The hasoka b'yatzem adova.
Let's go back to what was the marshal of the RASHAB? The mind of community, if it came from before Bria or after Bria, everything is Bria.
I don't follow exactly the question. Let me tell you what we said. The oil shenivra be'im reishim is a phenomenal oil. There are two aspects about this oil. One is in that there is no source, no moyer, and oil without a moyer does not make sense in the world. The other is that it's a kind of oil that is limitless.
And this is what the Ramban explains as oil.
That's right. It's limitless. Limitless. It's an oil, a physical oil, as we can understand within worldly parameters. There's an oil, there's a light, and it comes from there and it comes here, and it has a limited ray, a direction. This oil hayoim, oil hayoim is a clearly it's a godly presence. I always explain the interesting thing that Rebbe created the whole world, and then created Adam Rishon, and then he told Adam Rishon he should name all the things in the world. Adam Rishon went and he named all the creatures, but there is a few creations that Hashem named himself, such as Oir, Yoim. Vayikra Elikim lo Oir Yoim. Why did Rebbe give the name Yoim? Why didn't he wait till Adam Rishon? The Adam Rishon should name Oir Yoim. The reason is that Yoim is not within the capacity of a human being to comprehend. That he should come up with a name, Yoim, it's not possible. It's beyond Seichel.
Can't define it.
He can't he can't give it parameters. This is Yoim.
A name means Chabes Ugetach.
A name, that's right. But you can only keep lawyer Yoim. That makes sense. That is only why it's possible. You should have a word Yoim. Because Yoim is not oil. What's the difference between Lo'oyer Yoim? Oil is just is an oil that represents a ray of light. Yoim is not a ray of light. Yoim is where it encompasses the entire creation, from the bottom and from the top, from the front and from the back. It's a completely different presence.
But a person also could differentiate between a day and a night.
The friendship between day and night is only because he cannot see at night. Now there is a practical reason why he differentiates. But in terms of the reality, there are two things. That also is a divine thing. I always bring out that's an interesting thing. I never saw it said until, but it's obvious. The Pasuk says, "As Hashem Moshe Memshel Bayin." I read the Chol the Memshel as much as Malosh, not Memshelis, Memshelis. Memshelis, the summer makes light. Memshelis is it's a Memshala. Because it changes the entire world. Like a Moshe. A Moshe makes everything reflect him. Shemesh is not a light like this light that leaves room to think that there is something beyond this light. It takes the whole thing over.
I thought a Moshe is just functional, and a Melech would be everything reflects him.
That's right. That's why this in the whole Indian the Shemesh was Mayim, this is the Meibershen's effect. The Shemesh Mitzadatzma could not have grasped that kind of a rule. Of the Rebbe gave it that capability.
Why is it called Memshula, not Melucha?
No, because the Melech is the Rebbe, not the Shemesh.
But the title Memshula is just functional. Memshula is not.
The Rebbe gave it a functional Memshala, but who gave it to him? Only the Melech can give this kind of Memshala. The whole difficulty that we have over here is, and I'd like we should focus in on it. Hagam shezeho ha'asoga be'etzem hadover. It's asoga in etzem hadover. We just finished singing inside etzem hadover. Now we say no hagam that this is hasoga be'etzem hadover. Hainu. What do you mean by etzem hadover? Hainu behasichli. What do you mean by hainu behasichli? Because the sichli is an intangible reality. The sichli is very real, but it's real only from the sichel perspective. There's nothing tangible about it. What is the difference between the human being and the heart of the animal? It's a sichli, it's a conceptual thing. And it's so much a conceptual thing that there are people who choose to deny it. What's the difference? We eat, they eat, we sleep, they sleep, they eat, the same thing. Because if you're going to identify it by its physical worldly structure, you won't be able to compel a difference. Like I always say, that if we should descend down to the world and start to identify the world from what we observe in the world, we'll end up in the Darwinian camp. We'll end up to say that human being evolved from monkeys. Where else does a human being come from? But evolved, he's smarter than a monkey. But the human being is not smarter. The human being is a different, he's sichli. He identifies things from a different level completely, a different perspective completely. He identifies things that don't exist in the world. Etzem means something which is true from a different level of truth. A truth that is based on truth, not based on mitzias. What truth is based on truth? Motivation. Okay, so let's continue inside. We are trying to identify the difference between the moich in the way they are in Bria and the moich in the way they are in Atzilus. The overall, the first point, the first point to recognize the difference between Atzilus and Bria. As we said, Atzilus is an emanation, Bria is a creation. What's the difference between an emanation and a creation? A creation is something which has been created in the place of it, where it's placed on its own, in its own place. An emanation is that which emanates from the truth itself.
It's not yesh ma'ayin.
Not yesh ma'ayin. No, this is an emanation. Like you say, the sunlight, not the sun ray. The sunlight is like an emanation. It doesn't exist independently of the sun. It is the presence of the sun. It's not Matthias. So the Rebbe explains that even in Chitzonius, Seichel retains an element of where it's coming from. Seichel at all levels, even Seichel of Bria, it is more difficult and it is more challenging, but even Seichel of Bria is also a Sichli. This is where our challenge is. We live in the world, but we must not get lost in worldliness. We we're also, even though we're in the world, we're also focused in our seichel to understand the etzem hadover. Etzem hadover means the essential reality, like you said. The human world and the animal world are not at all similar, even though they all have to eat and sleep. And the difference, it's impossible for us to define it. Where do we have it? We have it in our seichel. This is what we say, שהסוגה בעצם הדובר היינו בהשכלי. לא רק בטוב הדובר. The הסוגה of the seichel השייך על המידס is not just understanding betoiv hadover, meaning its effect, its usefulness, which is a completely in worldly parameters. So it's not b'hasoga b'teiv hadover, not only, but this is hasoga b'hasichli. It's a sichlike value. And therefore it's etzem hadover. It's a true reality, true value on its own. Hareze mikol mokoy. And yet still, despite the fact that this is not just b'teiv hadover b'hasichli, but it still remains b'kirev el hamidas. It is close to the midas. The principle that it's close to the midas means it is not limited to midas, but midas are reflected in it right away. As soon as you see it, it reflects in midas. Let us go back to oil hashemesh. What in fact is the difference between the oil and even the imerishin, as it was with Tad Shemesh, and as it is after that the Shemesh, that it was imbued into the Shemesh? He's saying that in terms of the eye encompassing the world, it's the same. Hashemesh memshaz vayeh. What's the difference? If you think, this you have to think with Tar Seichel. This is not something. If you think, we can recognize that when you talk about the light with Tad Shemesh, you do not ascribe, you do not recognize that the light has any kind of worldly usefulness. This light is not to serve the world at all. Whereas when it comes from the Shemesh, even though it is Memshaz Bayim, but still it has a usefulness, because take the Shemesh away, it's going to be dark. Now it's light, so we have there's a significant, there's a usefulness to this light. It's not limited just to the usefulness, but there is a usefulness. It's closer Hamidus. There's a functional element that you identify with it. Because when you say that it's coming from the sun, means that you immediately see, here there is, here there isn't. Here's where it's coming from. If here, this is where it's coming from, so you immediately identify what does it do for the world. Whereas it's a light without a source, without a shemesh. It's not identified from a worldly perspective. You know, what does it do for the world? It doesn't belong here to begin with. This is the pshat that it's taki be'etzem hadover, but it's b'kirev al hamidos. it immediately alerts you to the effect that it has on the world.
Without a luminary, it's still light. It's still, you could still like see where you're going.
The luminary, that would be, I said, there's always the idiot's view of things. It's nothing to do with it at all.
Nothing to do with.
But making it possible to see. There is no possibility of not seeing.
There is and there's not. Here,
This is what's
It's the
right.
contrast.
Huh?
Because of the contrast.
That's right. This is what we say. Without a luminary, the world could not sustain it.
That's what function. That's what function means. Function is something that could not be.
But even on the Yom Rishon there was day and night. Even before luminary.
The oil Shenivra B'Yom Rishon did not. That's why it needed to be separated. Did not allow for different times. The Rebbe miraculously identify. Okay, you can do. You'll be here. You'll be here. But it's not inside the oil itself. The oil is unlimited. Okay, let's continue. I just don't want to leave things without some kind of a Levushi Hasoga. But ultimately, this is Ba'asichli. This is ultimately speaking to us as sichli, as sichliim creatures, not like animals. Not like we coming. I close my eyes. Tell me what I see. As for example, Bizbonanus Aleki. Bizbonanus Aleki. One is focused on Alakus. But Bihislapshus Levushe HaHasog. That he takes his Bonus Aleki and he imbues it in Levushe HaHasog, in garment of Hasog. What are garment of Hasoga? Garment of Hasoga is the contrast. Like how you, like I give the very simple illustration. How do you grab a table? You cannot grab the table from the tabletop. It's a physical thing, but there's no way to grab it. To grab it, you have to grab it from where it is not. And then you can grasp it. That's what Levushi Hasod. So when we understand B'Yizbonus Aleki, it is Aleki. Now let's understand what is so unique about B'Yizbonus Aleki. Since it's Aleki, you don't have a question, how could God have done this? If it's a human being who made it, how did he do it? As long as Aleki does not beg this question, how could God have done this? Finished. This is not, doesn't have to justify the ability to do it. That's what the bonus Aleki. So here is as bonus Aleki. It is Aleki, and you recognize that this is Aleki, but you want to focus it on it. You have to be mizboinet. It has to be hislabshus bilvushi hasoka. Hislabshus hasoka is that you identify the in Aleki with levushim, with identifiable elements. Such as the Rebbe made the world, revealed the world to us perfectly. We should see everything in the world. How did he do that? He brought light. Did Rebbe have to bring light and the sun to make us able to see the world? No. But that's how he gave it to us. We see it because there is light.
What's the definition of
Wo ist es?
the definition of Levusha HaSober? Levusha HaSober.
Levushi HaSober, like I explained before. The means to be masig anything is to identify where it starts, where its starting point is. Where it is not and where it is.
Why is it called Levush?
Because the Hasoga does not really, let me say this, if you grab this table from its end, okay, this is only your perception. The table really is a reality whether you grab it or you don't grab it. The real thing is the table is a tabletop, which you can't even grab. That's why it's called a lavush. A lavush, a garment, means that you superimpose on it some kind of an approach that limits its effect, its presence. But it's not. But it says just for the purpose of you being able to understand it, to grab it, not because that's what it is.
What means is bonus? How can we have this? How can we have masik on the course? Bonus of the key of Visha so.
Soon we're going to be kicked out of here. But let me.
What was the question again?
It's bonus of the course. Means you was born on the course. Levusha so.
If it's a lakutz, how to lavush also. Okay, I really need a little good time for this, but let me see if we can. Maybe we haven't already discussed so much of it. A table is not a physical structure. Somebody who tells you, what's a table? A board and four legs. He misses the whole point. A table is a human element. A table represents the human dignity. It says that the shulchan is it Kesem Malchus. This is identifying the Malchus element in the human being. The Malchus element in the human being is not limited to where the table stands. This is only an allusion to it, representative of it. But the reality, this is because the human being sits there, the table is right in front of him. Wherever the human being is, that's where the table is going to come. Because that's what his level of being is. So when you grasp the table because you found the end of the board, you're not grabbing the table. You're grabbing the structure of the table. That's what Levushi HaSober. How do you grasp it? You grasp it by its limits. But that's not what it stands for.
But we're speaking about this bonus of the course.
That's right. So the bonus of the course is bonus of the course. And the only way for you to be misbonus of the course is what does it do in the world? That's like we say in this sichli. A table is It's not a physical entity, it's a sikhli, it's a human quality. And yet, you go and identify it with its physical parameters. That's what the Vushya Hasoga means. It's Elokus. Elokus means, just like in the house by the table, it's not limited to the structure, but it alludes to it. The same thing is Vushya Elokus. Elokus is not limited. The Rebbe did not need the sun to make light. As a matter of fact, he made light before he created the sun. But the sun allows this light to be put in the Vushya Hasoga. And this is why it is possible for us, for the world to have this kind of light. Because it's a godly light. No, but there's a garment, there's a way of putting into perspective.